And to the K through 12 task force for inviting us to have a seat at this very important table. We're thrilled to be in partnership and in collaboration with all of you at this particular event. They're investigating the world, they're exploring new perspectives, they're communicating ideas, and they're taking action. They're students all over the world. They're tomorrow's community and global leaders who are right now in classrooms around the globe. And they're also members of Bridges to Understanding's worldwide network of classrooms. At Bridges, we coach middle and high school teachers to engage their students in our bilingual global education curriculum using 21st century tools. Working in small teams, students create digital stories about issues that are important to them. Issues such as environmental sustainability, conflict and reconciliation, and their own unique cultures and traditions. They then share those stories with Bridges students on the other side of the world using our interactive website and post messages in our online forums to learn even more about the real lives of their peers. With digital technology, Bridges students from very different backgrounds learn about each other, as one student told us recently, and not just from a book. A year ago, I got a call from Gragert, who is standing over here on the side of the room. He's with Carnegie Mellon University's Robotics Institute, and I must say, I'm sure some of you will understand this, it's nice being the woo-ee and not the woo-er in this circumstance. Gragert told me that he had been searching for 3 years for a program just like ours. First, a proven program that was connecting classrooms around the world already. 2, that was sustainable and scalable, and 3, that combined technology education with issues and activities that students really care about. And he, in turn, had a robotic learning tool, the GigaPan camera mount, which you can see here. It's in action right now, taking a picture of the room. He wanted to integrate the GigaPan into our modular curriculum. So Bridges and Carnegie Mellon struck up a strategic alliance that was aiming to enhance and broaden scale for both of us. In turn, we at Bridges brought to the table a newly minted strategic plan, a business plan, what a concept for a nonprofit, right? A curriculum that was developed over 3 years by an international cohort of educators, and long-standing relationships with schools and NGOs in Peru, Guatemala, South Africa, India, and throughout the Pacific Northwest. Developed for NASA's Mars rover program, the GigaPan enhances our students' exploration of their communities as they use it to capture super high definition, panoramic images of where and how they live. They then post the images in an online forum and invite other classrooms to enter their school, their town, and even their homes, zooming into the images and fostering conversations about another way of life. Can we move forward on this? Yeah, okay, doesn't look like it. Okay, I was going to show you something here. Already this year, Bridges students are using GigaPans in Seattle, South Africa, India, Peru, and very soon in Pittsburgh, where we're piloting our first collaborative teacher training with the GigaPan. Our growth and impact have been unmistakable and productive, but further growth requires seed capital for manpower and equipment. Bridges is almost 10 years old. In that time, more than 2,000 students in 10 countries have participated in our programs. And every week we get inquiries from teachers wanting to join our network. Right now we have inquiries from places like Japan and Senegal, Liberia, Brazil, El Salvador. Mozambique will be coming on in the springtime, as well as New Jersey, West Virginia, and New York. We've even got 2 teachers who are coming to our training in January in Seattle from Ohio. That's a first for us, and we're thrilled. Our overhead is minimal thanks to Getty Images, who provide our office space and services at their Seattle headquarters, and have promised a space at any of their regional offices worldwide as we expand. Our growth plan focuses on building a worldwide network of trained regional coordinators to recruit, train, and support teachers for our programs. They'll be equipped with our curriculum, digital camera kits, GigaPans, editing software, and other tools to ensure the teacher's success. Within 3 years, more than 6,000 students in 220 classrooms every year can be in a Bridges program. Now that's triple the number that we've reached over the past 10 years combined. I'm inviting all of you to partner with us as well in this ambitious but very doable program. I'd like to show you how we can partner to give tomorrow's economic, social, and political leaders the opportunity to connect with each other, to discover the power of their own voices, and to change our world and theirs for the better today and throughout their adult lives. So I invite you to stop by our table. We have plenty of material. We're going to be posting the GigaPan panoramic image of this group, also the one in the prior session, on our Facebook page within the next week, so you can go there and drill down and see that freckle on the tip of your nose and start a conversation about it. Thank you.
Okay, we have our last presenter from iEARN-USA, and their program title is the U.S. Africa Youth Exchange Initiative. We have Melanie Vojnovic, who's the Senior Manager for Public Relations, and iEARN-USA is headquartered in San Francisco. And we're just waiting for the PowerPoint.
Okay, great.
All right, so go ahead.
So thanks everyone for being patient. I will make it quick. My name is Melanie. I'm with iEARN-USA International.
Pull the mic over.
Oh.
There you go.
Okay. My name is Melanie Vojnovic. I'm with iEARN-USA International. We're based in San Francisco, and we're a 30-year-old nonprofit. And what I want to talk to you about is expanding study abroad opportunities for minority students and underprivileged students, especially in high school. So study abroad today, we've already seen some of the statistics. There are nearly 15 million U.S. high school students, but fewer than 2,000 of them study abroad. And of that, minority representation is really, really small. And so when U.S. students do study abroad, they also tend to choose European or Asian countries. They don't choose Africa. So what we'd like to do is increase study abroad opportunities between the U.S. and countries in Africa, increase minority representation, beginning at the high school level, and then increase reciprocal exchange programs so that we're not just sending students abroad, but that students are coming here as well. So our proposal is based on a program that we did this summer called the Emerging Youth Leaders Program. It's a reciprocal high school exchange program. There were 15 students from each country involved, and the exchange took place between the San Francisco Bay Area and Dakar, Senegal. We recruited urban and minority youth participants through our partners, iEARN and College Track, and the curriculum focused on democracy and governance in civil society. So through the program, the kids traveled together. First, they came to the U.S., and the Senegalese students stayed with the families of the U.S. students, their counterparts. And then after 3 weeks in the U.S., they went to Senegal, and the U.S. students stayed with the families in Senegal. Now, the most interesting piece about this, I think, is initially the African families were not sure that they wanted to have the American students come stay in their homes. And after the 3 weeks in the U.S., the U.S. students and their Senegalese counterparts had such a good time together that the Senegalese students were writing and calling their families saying, I want my brother or sister, meaning their American counterpart, to come see how I live, to meet my friends, to live in my house, because that's what I did with them. And by the time the American students actually arrived in Dakar, almost every single student was being housed with their counterparts. So we thought that was really amazing. The kids had great experiences. You know, even though they're coming from urban and inner city areas, they started to realize they lived pretty sheltered lives, and that there was so much more out there for them, and that they learned things about English being imperative, about being open to new ideas, about not believing everything they saw on TV, just through a 6-week program. So what we're proposing is a U.S. Africa Youth Initiative that would take this program and expand upon it. This would take place every summer, hopefully, and what we would do is focus on a different African country every year, but hyper-localize the program so that the students really get to see how they can affect their local area, not just bigger, not just the national, not just nationally, but locally. So the 3 examples of possible curriculums and possible locations are here. Botswana is one. And the idea here is so the U.S. students and the students, for example, of Botswana would have something in common in their communities. So in Botswana, there are high rates of HIV and AIDS, but they also have some of the most progressive treatment and education programs in Africa. The San Francisco Bay Area is very similar. So the global challenge is reducing poverty and disease, and the curriculum would be the role of education in the fight against infectious disease. A similar program could take place in Liberia, but there it would focus on minority representation and encouraging cultural understanding. The president of Liberia is the first democratically elected female president in Africa, and we all know our current president has also made some huge inroads from a racial perspective. Then in Namibia, Namibia is the first African, or the only country actually, that has protection of the environment written into their constitution. Likewise, the San Francisco Bay Area has some amazing history in environmental protection, not just going back to the 60s, but also going back to John Muir and the National Park System. So they're preserving the environment through local community involvement. And we do have a table as well. If you have any questions, I've tried to make this a little shorter because I know we're all hungry. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, and certainly with respect to all the panelists, thank you for hurrying your presentation. We appreciate that, but it doesn't diminish the work that you're doing. At this point, we're going to close. We just want all the top 10 representatives to come up and receive a formal certificate. And then with that, we move right over to lunch next door. But thank you, everybody.
So if you want to come up and get started, we'll get that. Can you get started without it, and we'll get it?
Sure, would be a lot better with it. Is she bringing? She's bringing it over. Right?
Okay.
I'll go get it.
Boy. I can just say a little bit about the task force.
Yes.
That would be good.
My name's Ed Gragert, and I'm with iEARN-USA. And I just want to say on behalf of the task force, the K-12 task force, thank you for coming. We were over in the other session, and our great presentations went a little longer than we expected. And so we are now moving into this room. Thank you for sitting here so patiently. And you will hear that there are some fantastic projects being proposed or underway. And those of us on the task force worked collaboratively, came up with the criteria, solicited proposals across the country through a variety of means, both, of course, all CSIET member organizations, but also through listservs and things like that. And I think, as you'll see from the organizations, they literally represent all across the country. And I think that's a real tribute to what's happening in terms of K-12 global education in the United States. And so our format's going to be that after this little introduction, then John, if he's en route.
He is en route.
One of us will do. Okay, no, I know. I'm at the other John Hishmeh. Here he is. So we're giving each organization 6 minutes. And John Hishmeh up here has been incredibly good at keeping people on task. And so we're going to jump right into it. You're on, right?
All right.
So that we don't take away time from the organizations to share what they're proposing.
All right. Did I miss anything? No. We're going to go to the first one, who was the last one of the last time. I think this is a great experience for those panelists because you have to give your 5-minute speech before someone loses interest anyway in your normal work. And we all do, right? I think it's something that's helpful. But these are incredibly accomplished presentations in terms of the work that's being done. So we'll go right to John, and hopefully we'll have time for questions and answers. Yes, sorry about that, John. We have the organization called United World College USA. Their project title is Beyond Borders, and we have John Bremen, who's the Director for Outreach Programs, and they're based in Montezuma, New Mexico. So over to you, and then I'll cut you off with no mercy, just so you know.
I know, I've learned that, John. Let's see how I can get that. I think I just hit OK. Don't press cancel. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm John Brayman, and I'm here with team members from United World College, Naomi Swinton, standing right there, Sharon Cito, who is, oh, she's in the lobby tabling. And we're delighted to be here, and I wanted to express my deep thanks to the panel for thinking of a K-12 section of this important work, since I, for one, and I think many of you too, understand the importance of reaching youth at a young age with the principles of internationalism. In my presentation, I'll be talking first about the institution from which we come, then about the program that we want to offer to the world called Beyond Borders, and about its operating principles. And I want to reaffirm the message of this morning earlier in the earlier session, that our come-from place, our assumption about all of this work is that it's one of the most enlivening experiences in the world to work with young people. It's fun. And some of what I'm going to be presenting today is factual and theoretical in behalf of advancing the idea that somewhere in this group we might find some partners that want to work on this project together, both to raise some money for it and to actually do it. Beyond Borders is a program of United World College USA. United World College USA is 13 schools on 5 continents. Over 45,000 students have studied at United World College since its founding in 1962 by Kurt Hahn, the same man who founded Outward Bound. Beyond Borders is a short version of the 2-year curriculum that fits into a strategic plan to make our mission available to more people in the world through short, intensive programs. The proposal that we have coming into this conference is for a teacher training experience that would work with teams of teachers and students from 5 different schools in an institute so that they could go back to their high schools in the United States and have impact on their whole school community. So Beyond Borders is actually rooted in the United States of America. We're not proposing that we would go abroad to study international issues, but we would study those international issues right here at home. Here are schools and colleges spread across the world. I'm going to breeze through some of this. We have a very strong academic program. You know, it's noteworthy that our students gain acceptance into the top 50 colleges in the world, despite their varied backgrounds. But one of the core principles of our program is service. Kurt Hahn established this idea of compassionate service as fundamental to the United World College system when he started it in 1962. We also believe in transformative education, and that will be defined by facilitating consciously directed processes that critically analyze the underlying premises of community life for those 200 students from 80 countries who come to live on our campus. And it is this same transformative assumption that would be engineered into Beyond Borders. Our society is becoming more global, propelled by the twin engines of migration and globalized communication. So we feel that in the United States of America, it's critical that more high school students understand how to know their neighbors better and to deal with the stereotypes that often freeze them from that knowledge. And that's what Beyond Borders does, is it addresses these trends. Students have an underlying understanding of why there's more migration, why this society is more global. They study the underpinnings of these issues before they then engage in an immersion experience. This immersion experience addresses the borders that exist between ideologies and groups, between neighborhoods. We understand that borders are to be respected, but that borders have openings. And the program is geared at finding these openings for greater understanding. The program, you're seeing pictures of the program as this PowerPoint goes along. This program is experiential and depends upon a very life-changing immersion experience where students actually leave the comfort of their known surroundings and they go and live in places like the US-Mexican border for a week. They interview people, they have homestays there, they look at the whole situation with their own eyes and ears, they debrief through a carefully organized debriefing sessions, they write, they create, and they come back with a whole new eyes and ears about a situation like migration that's so highly politicized in our understanding if we just look at the media. So we believe in developing these capacities, not just knowledge and information, but capacities, the eyes to see things that divide us, developing the heart to be compassionate and empathize with suffering, the hands to implement change, and the soul to persevere with joy. So we're not afraid of using these analogies when we're talking about very rigorous, experiential, and also academic experience. And I have a feeling that John's going to tell me my time is running short.
Tickle you a little
But
bit. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
here is our engine of the pedagogy. It's an underlying assumption, theory, and action, where to the left, we provide the knowledge, skills, and relationships for experiences in leadership development for global citizenship in these week-long programs. That develops a thing that some of us call change agency. And change agency is the desire and the passion to make the world a better place, as well as the ability to self-motivate in responding to needs without somebody saying this should happen in a particular way. And then the capacity to adapt to things as they change once young people get into a situation where they're leaders. The program components, we have 8 of them. I'm going to breeze through this and talk to you all about this later at our table, I hope. But I want to just mention with my closing time one of the fundamental precepts of our program, which is that teachers are participants. And in some cases, they're even co-learners. And this is a fundamental change from both what young people think that teachers should do and be, and what teachers think they should do and be. And once we've created a kind of community of learners, the unleashing of curiosity and the unleashing of interest is manifest. So in these experiences, adults and youth go together. And if we have our wishes, we will be empowering other teams of high school teachers and students that will come from 5 different schools around the country to an institute this summer at our college, at our school there in New Mexico. And they will go away with the skills and understandings and an action plan to launch their own Beyond Borders programs in their communities that respond to local needs. So I will thank you very much for your attention as I bow out, hopefully on time, John?
You're doing great.
Okay. And it's a good thing because I can't get the PowerPoint to advance anyway.
Well, there you go.
So we have a handout that Naomi and Sharon may have passed out, or it's at the table about the program, and thank you again.
Thank you, John. And again, thank you to I'm not sure if this is on. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you to the panelists for your patience and all this. You know, we're joking around, but I know this work is very important to all of you. And you're really, your elevator speech is going to be perfect by the end of this conference because you're going to say it in a more brief setting more often, I guess. Our next project that we want to call up is the Let's Go Global. Rita Golden-Gelman is the founder and board president of Let's Get Global, which is a project of US Servus, which is headquartered in California. Rita is coming up now, and those of you who don't know Rita, she has a terrific book you might want to look into, The Female Global Nomad. Tales of. So she's used to roaming around from room to room and not having an address. So Rita, thank you. We rushed you considerably on the first group, so we appreciate your patience. And we're just about ready to have you come up. I know you're not a PowerPoint type, so your words are enough.
What does a PowerPoint type look like?
Everybody else here, I suppose. Okay.
Thanks for having me. As John mentioned, I wrote a book called Tales of a Female Nomad, and it's about my life of the last, well, I've been a nomad literally for 23 years. No home, no possessions. I just move around the world. It's great. But what I've discovered is that there are almost no young Americans moving around the world. There are Australians and British and New Zealand. There are the overseas experiences and the gap years and whatnot from all those other countries, and almost none from the US. And statistics on the high school level are equally as appalling, and you'll hear about some of those as the other speakers talk. Then I go back to the United States for a while, and I hear all of the intolerance and the xenophobia and the prejudice that these days is in the paper every single day. And I think there's probably a connection. You know, you can't sit across a table if you're in another country and then come home and say those kinds of things about people. So I decided I was going to start an organization, and we're still at the startup stage, and we're going to call it Let's Get Global. And I'm determined. The mission of Let's Get Global is to encourage and assist recent high school graduates to spend a year having an international experience. It can be a summer too. It can be a semester. It doesn't have to be a full year, but get out of the country, cross some borders, share some lives. And the question is why? Why don't they? One, most people don't even think it's a possibility. Our challenges are the parents who are afraid to send their kids away. One of the things that Let's Get Global is planning to do is set up some way of rating the different programs. There are gap year programs. They're just not across every segment of our population, and not very many people. But we are not going to be a program. We want a marketing idea. We want to send the word out across the country. This is a possibility. It's an option. And if Coca-Cola, for example, taking from this morning, has a new product, they're out there marketing it, and within 2 weeks, everyone in the country has heard of Coca-Cola. We're going to go after some of that kind of marketing. We're also going to make coalitions with the groups, all those of you in this room, who do have gap year programs, and we're going to set up a central resource, you know, that clearinghouse where people who hear about the gap year, because we've just done a great marketing program, can go and find out about the gap year programs that are there, find out about the money it's going to cost, find out about some of the, how they can earn some money on their own. And the collaboration among the programs, with the schools, and the school, here's where we come into this room. There's money in communities, more money probably than if we went after a large picture. So we're going to go into communities. We're going to have, and down the line, as many schools as we can find, but we're going to start with probably about 5 schools. Programs that are anthropologically inclined, about cultures, about gestures, about how do you go into some place and not have a language. It's pretty amazing to go into a place and not have a language. And it's not a problem at all. You have eyes, you have a smile, you have gestures. You can eat together, you can cook together. And there are connections that get made that way. And they're never forgotten. And the kids who do that, who have some kind of an immersion program, go home and they're never the same again. They see the world differently. You can't drop a bomb on somebody if you realize that someone is as human as you are. And they cry when their kids are unhappy. And you know, they go through all of the stages of life that you go through. So we are planning to set up in schools 5 pilot programs. We're going to track them. How many people did they send out of the country before we started? How many people actually went? The goal of these programs is not just to connect cross-culturally and talk about it. The goal is that we're hoping to get kids to get out and do gap years. And we're going to create a Back-a-Gapper program. I talked in a bookstore a few weeks ago, and I talked about it. A Back-a-Gapper, a Rotary Club, a parents' organization, stores in the center of town, corporations. It's not such a big deal to back a gapper. And if we got just a few gappers in each community backed, we've sent out tons and tons of people around the country. So that's our goal. We want to back a gapper. We want to certify the programs that exist. We want to have the programs part of a coalition. And it doesn't have to be our own school program. If there are programs already in the school encouraging international education, we can slip it in. I want to do a book with an anthropology department and get the kids who are doing PhDs to give us some information, to fill up this book with the kinds of things like foods and what movies are good, flip cams. The schools in those first 5 should be talking to each other, what they're finding out. And I'd like to get, one in an urban setting, another one in a country setting in Michigan. Let the schools talk to each other, what they're finding out, how they're doing it. And I think it would change, not just the kids, which of course it does, we all know that, the country, and eventually the world. But one last thing that my experience has that will never go away from the people who do this, who get out there and do a gap year, and that is the joy that runs up and down, courses through your body when you're sitting across from a family in Thailand, from when you're cutting up onions in the kitchen in Bali, when you're singing songs in New Guinea with a tribal culture, and everyone, at a certain point, there are tears in your eyes and their eyes, because you're connecting. It's a heart to heart, and it changes kids forever. It changed me forever, and I think it would also change the world. It's pretty hard to drop bombs when you realize that everybody's the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Okay. That's great. Thank you. If this is not on, I'm just going to speak louder. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Thank you. Our next group is the Tony Blair Faith Foundation, and their project is Face to Faith. We have Daniela Reva, who's the External Relations Manager, and the organization, the Tony Blair Faith Foundation, is based in New Haven, Connecticut. All right, and they have a terrific video that they're going to play from Tony Blair. And those of you that
you gave it away.
Oh, I gave it away. Sorry.
It's okay.
Are you ready, though, with the video? You have that?
Well, I guess I'll just start quickly and say thank you for inviting us today to share a little bit about Face to Faith, our global education program, and also for convening this task force. It's been so inspiring just hearing about all this great work being done, and really encouraging to know that there's so much out there. Before I go into the actual program, I'll start with a short video message from the big boss, and I'll hope it works.
Hello everyone, I'm sorry I can't join you at the summit today in person. Let me say, first of all, I am honored that my foundation's education program, Face to Faith, was chosen as a top program by the US Center for Citizenship Diplomacy. I launched my Faith Foundation.
Right, so as Mr. Blair said, Face to Faith is a global education program that links up students from different countries around the world to discuss a range of global issues from different faith and cultural lenses. We at the Foundation think that interfaith dialogue is necessary in this world, in this globalizing world, but we also realize that it's very difficult and that we really need to help people, both students and educators, to develop those skills, to know how to dialogue respectfully and in a meaningful way. So one major reason it's difficult is because as people grow older, their stereotypes become more ingrained and it's hard to break them down. So we start young with students between the ages of 11 to 16, so that's mostly middle schools and a little bit of high schools. One reason is because with young people in that age, they're still defining their identities. Their stereotypes have yet to be really formed, and they're also really excited and curious about learning about the world and about people from different parts of the globe. In addition to those knowledge and in addition to cultivating those relationships, we also really need them to develop those skills so they're able to live peacefully alongside each other in this increasingly globalized world. So Face-to-Faith uses video conferencing to facilitate direct interaction between students from across the world so they can learn directly with, about, and from each other. We believe that direct contact is the best because it humanizes what would otherwise just be seen in the media or sound bites in the news. It helps break down stereotypes and also misconceptions and prejudice. And if we want these students to become true 21st century global citizens, they need to develop the skills to hold meaningful and respectful dialogue, even when their views diverge. So Rita, as you were saying, we want to bring them together so they can discuss and discover their similarities and commonalities, but we also want them to develop the skills to know what to do when there is difference and when people don't agree on the same thing, so they can celebrate their differences and discuss them in a respectful and meaningful way. So how does it work? What are the main components? We have a comprehensive set of lesson plans and resources. So we have modules that range from issues from the environment to poverty and wealth and charity to the art of expression and human rights. And we have different social action projects. We have a secure online community for registered schools only. So that's for teachers and for students to be able to continue the conversation and really develop a relationship with their partner schools. They can work on homework together, they can develop projects together, so in preparation for video conferences and follow-up after, so it's not just a one-off thing. And then really the crux of the program is the actual face-to-face or face-to-faith interaction through the facilitated video conferences. And we emphasize the facilitator because we don't just want to do a Skype because we don't want to place the teachers in the position where they really have to lead the discussion, and if they confront difficult and challenging issues, then they have to step in and know how to deal with it, because we know that that's not easy and we're not born with those skills and those abilities. So we have expert facilitators who have background in interfaith dialogue and conflict resolution. So we also want to develop a network, an international network of educators and not only of students who are learning about each other, and we want to support them as much as possible because we realize, again, that this is not an easy task to do. So the first thing we do is we have teacher training workshops and tailored materials. The training workshops are both on the ground and also online. We have professional development video conferences, and we've also started doing teacher-to-teacher video conferences where they can share experiences and learn more about the program firsthand. We also have local coordinators in lead schools. So in the US, we have a few local coordinators in different regions and a few lead schools. And in other countries, we usually have one local coordinator, and they really work on their local context, what the national curriculum is, and then what the state curriculum is. And they work on kind of mapping the face-to-faith curriculum onto existing curricula so it fits into the local context and it's locally relevant. What we want to make sure is that this is accessible to everyone. We realize that many of the schools in the US, perhaps in the UK, do have access to video conferencing and to computers, though again, not all of them. We make the video conferencing software free, and the teacher training and all the materials are also free. And in countries that want to become involved in areas where they don't have access to computers or video conferencing, we think creatively of ways where we can provide that access to them. So for instance, in Pakistan, where they did not have those abilities, we created a resource center. So now instead of all the teachers and students video conferencing from their own schools, they can come to the resource center and video conference from there. This model has proven really successful. and really easy because it's in their local community. And we would really like to roll that out contingent on further funding. So we already have plans to roll that out to other countries that are interested in the program but don't have those capabilities. So if we could secure further funding, that would be our top priority to allow access globally. This is the map of all the countries where we're active now. There's no real strategy in how to kind of pair up the countries. We allow the teachers to choose whichever country they want to speak to and whichever school, and they can go on the online community and look at the different schools and choose which one they want to pair up with. One interesting story that I shared before was that we said we would never force anyone to talk to a country where there may be need, but there was no real interest, or there were political issues or legal issues. But funnily enough, India and Pakistan came to us almost at the beginning and said, you know what, we're going to be brave, we're going to do it. This wasn't accepted well at first, but very quickly after, they just started video conferencing, and it just took 2 really brave teachers to make that connection. And immediately after, just after one video conference, the Indian schools came to their teachers and said, wow, we can't believe that all the stereotypes and all the ideas we had about Pakistanis and Muslims were just completely shattered, and we have no idea why we thought the way we did. So just to end with the work that we're doing in the US is that we realize that this is a global program, but we really need to make it locally relevant. So for instance, in the US, we've partnered with the First Amendment Center to do a lot of work around the First Amendment and to frame the program in a First Amendment framework, so teachers feel comfortable with speaking about religion in the way that's constitutional and legal and acceptable. So we've created a First Amendment guide and online training and training sessions around the First Amendment. Finally, please contact us. We invite you to become part of the program and the mission. We've heard so many great stories from around the guide and online training and training sessions around the First Amendment. Finally, please contact us. We invite you to become part of the program and the mission. We've heard so many great stories from around the room today, and we'd love to collaborate with those and also with others who are interested. So please visit our table outside, and we'd love to speak with you more. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniela. Okay. Our next group is SAGE, Studies Abroad for Global Education, and their project title is World Water Crisis, Youth Taking Action. We have Nathan Scott from Fort Collins, Colorado, and we're getting the PowerPoint just about ready. So over to you, Nathan.
Good. Thank you. So very briefly, thanks to the K-12 Task Force for having us. I'm Nathan Scott, the Executive Director of the SAGE program, and I'm here with Anjali Wagner, who is a former SAGE student and doing important work on water herself. We'll just go ahead and let you know just a little bit of background about SAGE. We've been around for 18 years, doing cross-cultural work, providing opportunities for high school students to travel, to work, to study, to go do volunteer service projects of a whole range of forms. We're also working domestically on 2 Native American reservations, the Lakota and Navajo nations. Our mission is to provide youth and educators with the opportunity to travel, volunteer, and study abroad as a means to gain greater understanding of the world and themselves. We do this by challenging our participants to move beyond their comfort zones, which we feel is really important, and high school students are always willing and ready, to think more critically about the world. So all of our programs have kind of a strong critical reflection piece to it, and then to become more engaged and responsible global citizens. So we do that through follow-up engagement with our students so that they are coming back from their experiences, not just having had a good time, but really integrating into their communities. Our program areas, as you'll see, we have an academic program that sends students abroad for either a semester or a year to enroll in international schools. We have a gap year and volunteer service volunteer service program where students take time after having completed high school before they go on to college, or even in taking some time off during college to do volunteer service. And we have service opportunities around the world. We're in primarily in the Asia, Africa, Latin America. So we have locations in India, in Ethiopia, Ghana, Chile, Costa Rica. I could name others. And then our third area is what we call our short-term immersion program. We're taking groups of students, again, recognizing that not a whole lot can happen in 2 weeks, but it's 2 to 3 weeks, but we milk it for all it's worth. We give students as an intense an experience as possible, immersing them in local culture and addressing a local topic. And the project that we're presenting about today is looking intensely at the issue of water.
So as Nathan mentioned, I'm a former SAGE student, and I've been doing some work on water in India, so I get to come in both these regards. So we're talking today about the project that SAGE is putting together to engage American youth and Indian youth with the issue of water and the global water crisis. So I know that all of you are probably well versed in everything that's going on with water issues around the globe. I got to personally experience it this summer in India, and we saw everything from late arriving monsoons, so massive droughts, to massive flooding in northern India and Ladakh, which you guys may have heard about in the news. So the water issue is very pressing, and it's one of those issues that touches every person on the planet. So I'm going to let Nathan tell you a little bit more about the program.
Okay, so basically we've developed a program design that addresses issues, but really what's most important is getting youth from US and youth from India together, to partner together on water issues. So our program design basically is collaborative, getting these two youth groups, and we really feel like problem-solving skills between groups of youth from different cultures is really the key to our success. It's collaborative, it's cross-cultural, it's sustainable in that we have both financially as well as in the program design. We've enabled it to be self-replicating after we get the project up and going off the ground. It's carbon neutral because, as we all know, global climate change is driving the water crisis in many areas. It's long-term because we have a vision for that this will just kind of keep replicating after we're working on water in India. We'd like to extend that to other parts of kind of where the water crisis is most acute. It's effective. We've developed monitoring and evaluation techniques to make sure that we are doing an effective job of what we're doing. It's scalable, and I think most importantly, we are committed to equal opportunity. So we have a scholarship program in place that allows low-income students, and we have experience we've actually taken groups of inner-city students from 5 US cities to India to work on projects before, and so this would be kind of the next step of that. Very briefly, we have, kind of the usual. We have a pilot program. We have a school already identified that's going to be leaving for India in March to do this project, and then we can certainly share with you a little bit more about our preparation, implementation, and reflection activities. Our outcomes, as you can see, are direct engagement as well as indirect engagement by US and Indian youth, strengthened peer-to-peer collaboration, awareness of the Millennium Development Goals, increased cross-cultural competency, and again, ability to think transculturally is really important for us, is getting students to step outside their own way of thinking and develop problem-solving skills. Finally, our partners, we have I would say an impressive list of partners both here in the United States as well as in India. And finally, just a few endorsements by some of the organizations we've already identified who are already going to be supporting us with this project. Ashoka Fellows being one of them. Ashoka, as you probably know, does really interesting social entrepreneur work. So it's up to you now, well, it's actually up to all of us to address this. So we do have a table at the back, and Anjali and I will be there. We also have some more details on our program. We'd love to collaborate, work with you to make this happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next group is with the National Association for Independent Schools, which is headquartered here in Washington, D.C. The program title is Challenge 2020, and we have Aona Wheeler, who's the Associate Director for Global Initiatives at NEIS.
Okay.
And we're just about to get that ready. While we're doing that, for all the 10 panelists, we've been asked to ask you to collect at a table at lunch. They want to talk to each other about how to do this collaboration. I guess that's inevitable in this kind of work for people that want to network. So at lunch, there'll be a table off to the left for the 10 panelists who want to talk further, since we've been so rushed at this session. So we'll move over to Yana.
Thank you, John, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today, and to the task force for providing us this opportunity and selecting us to be one of the 10 programs to present. As John mentioned, my name is Joanna Wheeler, and I'm the Associate Director of Global Initiatives at the National Association of Independent Schools in Washington, D.C., and we developed a program called Challenge 2020, which is an internet-based global education program that partners schools in the United States with schools in other countries, and together they work on solving global problems and finding solutions that could be implemented on the local and national level, and even in their own communities and their own schools. The program is based on J.F. Richard's book called High Noon, 20 Global Problems, 20 Years to Solve Them. And J.F. Richard used to be the Vice President for Europe at the World Bank. These problems are divided into 3 categories. One is sharing the humanity, the second is sharing the planet, and sharing the rule book. And they have to do with anything from global warming to fighting poverty, combating terrorism, education for all, illegal drugs. We have a brochure that we're passing out that lists all of the global topics, and also another brochure that has an application form and more information about the program. Unfortunately, the deadline on this brochure is of this year because next year's brochures are going to be printed in January, but please feel free to get one. The program is free of cost, and it's an internet-based program. We allow both public schools and private schools to participate from anywhere in the country. And I believe the youngest group of students that we've had were 3rd graders before, but we invite younger students to participate as well. And the program started in 2005 with about 75 schools from 30 different countries, and it's grown every year to where now we have about 500 schools from 56 different countries and about 39 U.S. states. The beauty of the program is that it's relatively unstructured. There are no benchmarks or strict criteria. We do offer guidelines for participation and next steps, but we allow schools to really create their own projects and to be innovative, and not only to create their own projects, but to select the angle to the global topic that they're researching. How does Challenge 2020 work? We have an application process where from March until August we accept applications, and then in August and in September we create those partnerships. Sometimes the schools that are applying, they apply to participate with schools that they already know, and those partnerships are automatic and they work really well. And if they don't know a school from another country, then we make the partnership for them based on grade level of the students, the global topic that they wish to work on, and the term preference. We have 2 terms, one is from September to January, and the other one is from January until May, to allow schools in the Southern Hemisphere to participate as well. We have many, many success stories. One that I would like to share with you is a school in Tennessee worked with a school in Germany, and they worked on the global infectious diseases with their high school students, focusing on hygiene, and they created the Helping Hands program, where they worked with an NGO in El Salvador to provide sanitizers and educational tools to a hospital in El Salvador. And the other program that I'd like to share with you before I end my presentation is a program that was developed by the Montessori School of Denver in collaboration with the school in Western Zambia through Project Educate. And I'll just summarize the program really quickly because we're out of time. But what they did was they studied global infectious diseases again. They focused on malaria with their 5th and 6th grade students. And as soon as they started working together, initially the school in Denver, the students in Denver decided, we're going to send mosquito nets to the school in Zambia to help with the issue of malaria. But once they started communicating with the students in Zambia, they realized that some of the the mosquito nets that are being sent to these countries in Africa, although they're great, sometimes they're not as efficient because they're meant to be hung over a bed, and in many instances, young children in Africa sleep on the floor, and so they're not protected. And so together, after collaborating and brainstorming, they came up with a solution, and a very simple solution that was based on a children's toy, or it was similar to a cylinder, laundry basket that collapses, so that during the daytime, these families can collapse the basket and make more space, more living space in their homes, but also to protect the students and the children in those homes. And so I thought that was a great example of collaboration and coming up with a solution that could be implemented immediately. You know, these mosquito nets were sent to hospitals and to homes in Zambia, and apparently they work really well. So we invite each and every one of you to submit an application. If you have any questions, I'll be here at the end of the session. My email is wheeler@nais.org. You can also email me, and I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Okay, we're coming to the second half of our presenters, and since you took longer the first time, you're going to have shorter this time, unfortunately, so we're going to keep moving. We have Lisa Jobson, who's the Assistant Director at iEARN-USA in New York, and their program title is My Energy Smart Community. And over to Lisa.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you all, and thank you to the panel. I work with iEARN-USA. We're the International Education and Resource Network, and a project that we and our partners in South Africa, Nigeria, and Uganda are really excited about sharing with you is a project that has to do with leveraging mobile technologies to engage young people, but specifically girls, in scientific research and research on energy consumption in their communities. I'll give you just some quick background about iEARN. We're a pretty large network. We started back in 1988, and we're now engaging about 2 million students a day in collaborative project work from ages 4 and 5 years old all the way up through high school. About 30,000 educators in 130 different countries. And our goal is to help teachers and students use technology to design and collaborate on projects together all across the curriculum. We're also a very distributed network. I work with iEARN-USA, but there are national programs all over the world. We share a common password-protected collaboration center in space where teachers and students can have a set of tools and a space to conduct their projects. And then we also have a common training methodology in terms of helping teachers look at how they can integrate technology for international exchange and also integrate global projects into their existing curriculum. So the model is very bottom-up. All the projects come from teachers and students. It's based on teachers' existing educational objectives, and then also the kinds of topics and themes and challenges that they see young people that they're working with care about. And so because of our scope and our reach, we're in this interesting position where we can sort of track trends in terms of the kinds of projects that students are interested in, but also their technology use. And so the project that we're talking about today is a bit of a convergence of some of those trends, and it has to do with the huge growth rate that we're seeing in access to mobile technologies and also really creative uses of those technologies for learning applications, but also for social benefit. And then it also has to do with, unfortunately, what we're seeing in unsustainable rates of consumption of energy, and particularly in the US, but at the same time, a real eagerness and excitement among young people to do something about that. And so we're seeing this opportunity also specifically as a way to reach out to girls, and that is coming in large part from some of the models that our partners at the SchoolNet programs, and specifically Uganda, have done to study some of the context of why it is that girls at around age 13, their confidence and interest in science is taking a big nosedive. And so they've done some really interesting work to start looking at engagement strategies for how they can bring in role models and expose girls to scientific research, and also role models in the field. We've already reached out across our network, and because of the nature of iEARN, a lot of these sites are already collaborating together. But we have sites in each country that are interested in the exchange piece and the physical exchange piece, but also in using the online tools to collaborate. We also have a project design in place where we've started looking at how to incorporate mobile technologies into the project work that's happening, and that's everything from polling and tracking behavior in the schools and community and families of students. Also some logistical support. How can we use available technologies to help support teachers and program coordinators arrange the program? And then also looking at how, because of the availability of these technologies in the hands of kids, how can we help them to have their voices heard using the technologies that they actually have access to? And then we have some great partners, including IBM, who have agreed to help sort of aggregate and manage the data as it comes in. So at this point, we're looking for support in terms of hardware and telecom costs, support for workshops. We also have an online course model where we run 8-week online courses for educators that allows educators to come together with colleagues in the other countries and work over a period of time to help develop joint curriculum and lesson plans, and then also the reciprocal exchange piece. So we also would love, if anyone who's interested in this kind of work, would love to partner with you. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, our next group is Global Indiana, which is a consortium for international exchange. Phil Bowley is the executive director, and the program title is 8th Grade Odyssey. They're located in Michigan Town, Indiana. So
actually, we're in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Well, you live in Michigan Town, right? That's
not anymore.
Well, I can't keep track, so go ahead.
My name is Phil, and I'm a recovering superintendent. I retired about 6 weeks ago, and now I'm able to devote full time to Global Indiana, a consortium for international education. Before I forget, I want to introduce Dr. Mary Ann Dewan. Dr. Dewan is our president-elect of our board, and she's going to be out at the table for you to converse with, but without her support and the support of the Central Indiana Education Service Center, we wouldn't have near the capacity that we do with Global Indiana. So our main business is setting up partnerships between Indiana schools and schools overseas. Most of our experience is in China. We have 76 school partnerships with China, and we are going to be informing these schools about the different ways that they can partnership, including Challenge 2020 and Faith-to-Face and so forth, because we don't prescribe the model on how they conduct their partnership. So any of these programs that involve partnerships are certainly an opportunity for our students. I put these booklets up here by Ed so that you can pick them up. They're not enough for everyone, so to avoid fights and so forth, I thought I'd just put them up here and then you can get them afterward. Also, if they're gone by the time you get up here, just leave a business card and we'll see that you get all the information about 8th Grade Odyssey and our organization. Rita mentioned how few American kids are overseas, and this statistic is from John's organization, the Council on Standards for International Education. While Americans hosted 28,142 exchange students during the 2009-2010 school year, only 1,980 U.S. high school students studied abroad. Now, that's an accurate statistic. Somebody questioned that. That's all this exchange programs that are registered with and are members of CSIET and are approved. There are others, but they're not any good. So, but anyway, that's pretty much the true statement about exchange students. So what our goal is for 8th Grade Odyssey is to create exchange students of the future by working with kids between their 7th and 8th grade year. By what we plan to do is to give them an early exposure to overseas travel, to pique their interest, to get them out of the country, and to get them
thinking about the possibility of becoming an exchange student and becoming more globally aware in the future. Here's how it works. We have contacts with educators throughout the state, both public and private schools. We'll send out nomination forms to social studies teachers and world language teachers. They will nominate their top kids to become part of the Global Indiana 8th Grade Odyssey. And then we will do a selection process that will involve interviews and paper selection and so forth. We'll get down to as many as we can afford, but anywhere between 20 and 40 kids to participate. And how it will work is it'll be based on merit for the kids, but it's also going to be based on the demographic makeup of Indiana. So we'll have rural kids, urban kids, Hispanic kids, African American kids, boys, girls, and so forth, so that it's a balanced group. And this is an all-expense paid trip, except we might charge something, so they've got something invested. But mostly it'll be paid for because we want to make sure that everybody can participate in 8th Grade Odyssey. And I don't have much time left. We're going to do a summer camp with leadership development, team building, intercultural training, country-specific cultural training, and then talk about what citizen diplomacy is by using guest speakers. Well, we know that there are things to worry about with 7th grade. Some of you might wonder, why are you going across the ocean with a bunch of 7th graders, for heaven's sakes? Actually, I used to teach middle school, and I think they're the most delightful kids. It's a great age. They have an adult sense. They're smart, but they still have that childlike curiosity and that enthusiasm and that impressionable age that they can begin to take this international experience into the future. We'll put them in homestays. We're going to take them on a 3-week trip overseas. We'll probably start with China, but we also have connections in Japan, in Germany, in Brazil, and in several other countries, and get them out of the country. So anyway, the rest of this presentation is about Global Indiana. You can find out about us at our website, which is globalindianainc.org, and or you can just Google Global Indiana and you'll be able to find it. Also, pick up a brochure or a booklet about the presentation and learn about Global Indiana. And we've got a table, so talk to Mary Ann and I, and we'll be glad to share with you about 8th Grade Odyssey and about Global Indiana. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, we have 3 more speakers, and this group went first last time, so I asked you to keep short in consideration of your fellow panelists. With our apologies, of course. We have the Center for Civic Education. Their program title is International Project Citizen. And we have Liza Prendergast from the Washington office, but the organization's headquartered in California. So we'll go right over to you.
All right, thank you. We have some...
Liza, pull that mic over to you.
Sure. We have some media that hopefully will get up for you. I am Assistant Director of our Center for Civic Education's Washington office, and it's my pleasure to represent both the Center for Civic Education and our partners in over 65 countries. We partner with every U.S. state and congressional district to implement programs that teach about civic education and democracy education. Our mission is focused on ensuring that students have the knowledge, skills, and dispositions, which was eloquent. It was a very eloquent beginning with Tony Blair talking about the knowledge and skills. And we're especially focused on the dispositions piece because with citizenship, you can know about your government. You can have the skills to know where to go to get information, where to go to your polling place. But if you're not willing to take that extra step, the action step, then are you really a citizen in your community or a global citizen? So I'd like to use that as a launching pad, there we go, to discuss our Project Citizen program, which is why we're here today, and thank the panel again for inviting us. Project Citizen asks students to engage with their local government. So the students are really empowered in public policy issues. We found that actually teachers have a hard time understanding public policy generally. So a lot of our teacher trainings focus in the US specifically on understanding public policy, and then we partner with NGOs and ministries of education in over 65 countries, and they work with their teachers to develop an understanding of public policy. The other rather unique thing about our Project Citizen program is that it is a very student-centered program. So the pedagogy is focused on the teacher becoming a facilitator rather than an expert in the content. Project Citizen, there will be pictures behind me from an event that we held in Washington. We brought together 8 students from 30 countries to participate in an international Project Citizen showcase. Through Project Citizen, students create a program board where they look at a challenge in their society. So it's a local public policy issue. They'll identify the problem. We have brochures that'll go around. They identify a problem. They develop solutions to that problem. So it's the student-centered problem. They choose it. They propose a public policy, and then they take action. So they have to work with their local government to solve the problem. It's not the fault of the government necessarily, but they have to choose a problem that they can engage with the government to solve. So the government becomes not an enemy of the solution, but part of the solution, and the students become part of the solution also. The Project Citizen in the US, we're partnered with a National Conference on State Legislatures. And they work with us to showcase student work in the United States. Internationally, we wanted to connect our U.S. students with our international partnership sites, and we've had an opportunity to do regional showcases in Africa, in the Middle East, and most recently in Southeast Europe, where students chose issues such as in Bosnia, the inclusion of students with disabilities in schools, where students chose issues such as how to engage students who are no longer, whose parents don't have citizenship in a country. How do you engage them in their society? So the students chose some very difficult issues in their own societies. What we're trying to do now is find a way to allow those students to engage about their issues with students in other countries. And my colleague Darius Udrius has been working on a project called Pro Citizen, which is looking at how do we use technology to have students conduct that dialogue via internet, via different types of communication besides that one-on-one, which is the ideal. So we're asking for your help. If you have ideas and how we can better develop that technology and that module, please come see us afterwards. And we also have materials that we'd like to share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Liza. Okay, our next group is